Hi guys, I hope these videos find you doing well, and staying safe, enjoying the near holiday seasons and time with family and friends and loved ones. It's going to be a 4-part series. I'm going to do them all. I'm going to explain how waitressing, some of the experiences and lessons and things I have experienced, through almost 2 years of waitressing have helped me in my life. First off, I'd like to explain a little bit about what I do. I'm a waitress at a retirement community, and I was hired out of 10 people. Briefly, I knew the guy who was the lead server at where I work, and I put in my application there. I was a maid at the time, and I was going to babysit him, their little kids. I think they had 2 of them at the time, and they were late picking me up, and they said they had lost 2 people at where they worked. And he said that if I was looking for a job, I should apply there, and I would probably get the job. And I talked about it with my mom, and I put my application in. I got a call. I went in for my interviews, and then I went in to talk to the general manager, who'd only been there about 4 days before I got called back. And they hired me. The general manager had come from a different community, a retirement community, and I'm still not quite sure why he picked me out of all of the 10 that could have been there. Probably when I started, I didn't know anything about waitressing or anything about the food industry. I did know that I was good with older people. I had worked with some older people, and I was a maid before I got my job. So I knew I was good with people, old and young and little kids, and I told them I would do whatever it took to make it worth their while that they had hired me. So when I first started, I didn't know anything about waitressing. I hadn't done anything with the food industry. I didn't know. I was completely clueless, and I've learned in almost 2 years some of the things that I used and use, some of my techniques, some of the things I do and say or act. They reflect on who I am as a person, and I wanted to relate these to life, how these work with waitressing and my job, and how they can relate to life, and how even in sometimes the hardest jobs you can relate it to life. And let's get started. The first one is words, your speech, your tone, the way you talk, the words you choose. When I first started, in real life, I'm a very talkative person. I am constantly talking about different things, except when I get around people I don't know. Sometimes then I can kind of back off a little bit. I'm a little bit more quiet, slightly more reserved. And when I first started there, the first girl I worked with, I talked to her and my 2 bosses, and I didn't talk to any of my other coworkers because I was terrified of them. I didn't think they liked me. I felt very much the new girl at work, and I was very quiet and very shy for about 2 weeks, and then I was like, okay, this is like a family, and I got accepted into it, and I'm great friends with all of my coworkers now. But I wanted to talk about words, speech, your tone, how you say things, what you talk about. When I go and talk to my residents, I always try to give them, let them know that I'm caring about them. I try and, I can't sit around and chit-chat because we have 140 people plus some who live where I work, and you have a certain amount of times that you have to get things done in, so you can't sit and chit-chat, but you can be kind with your words, how you talk, the tone you talk in. That gives a lot of effect on how you're doing, what's going on in your life. So I think in the ways that relates to life, I know a lot of people, sometimes it's hard to use nice words about other people, but I been not guilty of, but I've said some things that I regret, but that sometimes I don't know if they were the right things or if I was making a good judgment, and I said them out loud. And sometimes our speech, what we talk about, those show who we are, and the way we talk, if we're using a negative tone, that can bring down somebody's day. So I encourage you all to use nice words and kind tones. The second one is patience, and I've got, in my notes, I've got everyone deserves it, and so do you. And when I was younger, I used to not be the most patient person, especially as a little child. I was me, and that's how all little kids are. But as I've gotten older and matured and become an adult, I realized that not everyone's world revolves around me, and sometimes that's a hard thing to understand. Sometimes people can't do what you'd like when you want them to do it, and that requires patience. When I started work as a waitress, I had to become very patient with my residents, with them knowing I was new. They were all very patient and kind with me, and very loving. They accepted me very quickly, and they were very patient with me because I wasn't a slow learner, but when I learn things, especially when it relates to a job, I do my very best, and sometimes that takes a little bit of patience on their part. And you have to be patient with your coworkers. Sometimes, not necessarily that I don't know how to get along with them, but sometimes I'm like, speed it up a little, I know you can do better than this, or patience especially. This is one that was kind of a tough lesson for me to learn. Patience with yourself. When I started, I wanted almost instantaneously to have all the knowledge and all the experience that everyone else there had. Some people have been there 12, 13, 14 years working, and some have gone from being servers to cooks or things like that. We have one guy there who has worked 27 years. He's going on 28 years working there, and I just can't imagine the patience. But like I said, when I started there, I wanted to know everything almost instantaneously. I wanted to be the best I could be, and I had to be patient with myself in learning and in finding out that I couldn't know everything. Also, I had to be patient with myself in the fact that I had never done anything like this before, and it was a completely new world to me, and sometimes being patient with yourself, not beating yourself up mentally or downing yourself or criticizing yourself. Sometimes you need to take a step back and say, I did the best I could, I was patient with myself, I did my very best, and sometimes that's a hard thing to do, to have patience with yourself and say, there's always tomorrow, you can do it again, it'll be better this time. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, but it was one that I learned, not fairly quickly, but I learned it pretty darn fast, considering all the things that was one of the big ones. I needed to have patience with myself, with my residents, with my coworkers, and they in turn had patience with me. They were very kind and accepting and loving, and that was very good as someone who had never done anything like this before. I'll see you in my part 2 of waitressing tips and tricks and how to relate them to life.